Hello, Canada. It's Jeff Navarez, Canada News, and we're back with another coffee chat for the election 2026. And we're gonna swing on back to the city side of things. This is for place four. This is for either one of you to win. You're stuck next to me, so I don't envy you actually to sit next to me. Apparently, it's not the best place. But I have Ryan Ray and Melissa Barrow, and they're here to answer questions that they have to each other, just so everybody knows the format. There's my Zoom. Just so everybody knows the format, each candidate has submitted the questions beforehand. They each submit them to each other so they can prep. And then I've submitted one question to them. It's very similar to the one I did on place two the other day, if you watched that. So no surprises there. How you guys doing today?
Good. Thank you
Wonderful.
for having us.
Good. Thanks for arranging this time with me, and I hope we can get y'all's message out to the masses. I know in the past a lot of people have stopped and said, I appreciate the coffee chats and you doing that, especially since they won't let us record on the women's voters little thing that you guys have coming up too, which is a bummer. So y'all make sure you show up to that if you really want to see that debate. But for now, this is just coffee chat. It's not a debate. We're just going to have a conversation, covering some topics, and we hope we can dive some deep and really get into the nitty gritty of it all and get your message out. So y'all ready? We'll start with some intros. That would be Melissa. You go first.
Yeah, so I'm Melissa Barrow. Um, I am 10-year resident of Kennedale and excited to be here today. Thank you for having us, Jeff, and thank you for those of you watching. Really appreciate the interest in the city council elections. I've been outdoor knocking and noticing that a lot of folks just don't know where to get involved. So watching this is part of the first step. So thank you.
Thank you. Ryan?
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, my name is Ryan Ray. We have lived in Kennedale now for 13 years as of last month. Born and raised in the Mansfield, Kennedale area since the early 90s. We moved here in 1990. We moved into Kennedale in 2013. And this will be my second year campaigning. Last year, I joined in very quickly into the race blindly. And there's story behind that and purpose. But I joined in, and I'm very grateful to have this opportunity now to speak with everyone and to really get to know more people than I have over the past 18 months. And so, welcome and thank you.
All right, let's get started. The first question is to you, Ryan, from Melissa. It's if you could accomplish one major goal during your term, what would it be and why?
Well, this goes back to last year's campaign and why I joined last year blindly. And that is, I would love to see at this time, simply put, visible progress. Visible progress is something we all want to see as citizens as we pay those property taxes, as we see the cost. There hasn't been, on the visible side, not a lot of change and progress in the past 30 years as a whole. And so, and so, not just at this time speaking to the last 4 years, last 5 years, but the past 15 years. Visible progress has been slow here within the city versus when you look at all of our neighboring cities, both small and large, there's been a lot of growth. And that growth is coming. And I want to be a part of that direction of how we control that growth. There's some growth that is enjoyable that we all get to see and we get to enjoy, and then there's also there's the negative side of it. But growth is coming nonetheless, and I wanted it's something I expect us to see, and I want to be a part of that growth direction and how that growth comes to our city and how that affects our community.
Awesome. Melissa?
Yeah, I'd like to actually say I have seen visible growth in the last couple of years. So unlike Ryan, I've seen different shops coming in, but I've also seen some shops fail,
Mhm.
which that we need that. visible growth, but we need it to be responsible. We need it to be sustainable. I mean, I just picked up a dress from the Smoking Barrel, Gypsy Barrel, that
Great
just the other
owner.
day.
Yeah.
So I have seen growth, but one of the things that I'm looking for when it comes to this term, I really want to implement trust again. Um, when I've been out talking to neighbors, there just isn't that feeling of connectedness with city. Um, there's a disjointed feel, and people aren't feeling part of the conversation. So I think communication is going to be a big thing for me in these 2 years. Not just posting something on the website, but actually communicating, being able to be out there with neighbors and be able to share information. One of the things that I'm running on, I'm running on integrity, transparency, and respect. But part of that transparency, I hope to have quarterly roundtables where I can share out information, where I can collect questions and really hear the voice of the resident and what their concerns are. So once we get that trust from and really able to have kind of involvement from folks, city council shouldn't feel like an ivory tower. It should feel approachable. It should be made up of residents that represent our entire community. So being able to bring trust into the city would be my major goal for this term.
That sounds good. Yeah, and that's, always been a red herring, I guess, in a situation is, some people want to expect you on Facebook to announce everything, but I think it's a small town. It's kind of hard not to run into somebody who knows somebody. Or even yesterday, I got a phone call from a neighbor about a sewer line spraying up into the creek system yesterday, which I went out there, took some pictures, and got the city on it right away. It's just a small town, and so it's a lot of, if you're mobile and you're doing the events and you're doing the Christmas thing and you're at the dog thing and you're at the fish thing and everything that we do every month. I think you get that bigger sense of community and what's going on. It's just hard with social media and phones nowadays to connect the two sometimes of being in the public and being on your phone. But great
Yeah.
question in general. We'll go to Ryan's question to Melissa. What created your interest to get involved in the city governance? Why city council? And are you currently involved in the city or community?
Yeah. Great question. So thank you for asking that, Ryan. I I mentioned I'd been here 10 years, and 10 years ago we bought our house. I was raising a young family. I was kind of just doing mom life, and we know how that goes. I was working full time, just doing our thing, getting to know our neighbors, and really enjoying Kennedale, which I still enjoy Kennedale, and I love Kennedale. But some things started coming up where I couldn't continue not looking at them. So started looking at our taxes. They started rising. And I said, why is our stuff rising? And I know part of it is the valuation of our house, which is a great thing if we wanted to sell, but we don't have any plans to sell. So every year we're, protesting our taxes. And I look at it and I say, okay, let's break it down. We've got our hospital, we've got our county taxes, we've got our school district, and then we've got municipal taxes. And I thought, where can I affect this? And that's at the local level. Everything starts local. And that's why these elections are so important. So I really encourage everyone to come out on May 2nd and make their voice heard. But I looked at it and I saw we used to be fifth. We're now eighth, so there's some progress, but it's not enough. And especially when we're outsourcing so much of our services and we're having to go out for basic services. I'm looking at, you mentioned there's a broken foot. My son broke his elbow and I had to go to Mansfield. There was nowhere here. There's not even an urgent care within city limits. So there's no bank, there's no drugstore. What are we doing with our money that we don't have these services, that our bills are so high? And you know, as a military kid, my dad always he's was a Navy CB, and their thing was can do. You either put up or you shut up. So I hate to say it that bluntly, but that's how it was presented to me. So if I want to complain about something, I better do something. So I did. I took the step. I stepped up, and in October, I made my intentions known, filed my paperwork, and then when it came time to file for candidacy, I did that, and here I am. So I'm just a regular resident who kind of had some concerns and wants to make a difference. So that's why, everything starts local. That's why city council, as far as being involved in the community, um, I don't see how you have kids and you're not involved in the community.
Absolutely.
But I serve regionally, so I think a lot of what happens locally is a reframe of what is happening regionally. So I serve regionally in the Dallas Area Parkinson's Society. I'm on their board of directors that helps people living with Parkinson's live well throughout North Texas. We aren't in a little silo here. We have to work with our other municipalities. So I try to stay involved with what's going on in Arlington, what's going on with Mansfield, what's going on in Dallas and Fort Worth, big cities, small cities. I've lived in multiple areas and I've seen what works and what doesn't work. So hopefully we can take some of that and bring it in here. Locally, I love the programming our library puts on. My kids and I, we go to trunk or treats. We went to the chili supper cook-off this past month,
Thank you.
and
It was fun.
it's a great town. If you want to be involved, there's plenty of things to be involved in. So.
All right.
Definitely. No, and I appreciate that, Melissa. And there is there, and even myself, I have the past 18 months have got more involved and really I've been surprised about how uninvolved maybe my household has been because it is so easy when we live on the east side of town and the east side. That's I classify that as the east side of Mansfield Highway or the Parkway, and we have so much easy access over to Arlington within just a few minutes. We have all of our basics. We have our needs, and the small growth that we have seen within the city center, it's unfortunate, as you said, many have opened, but many have closed down. And that's not due to ownership, but that's due to the fact that the population really remains on the east side. And so the growth opportunities as a city that we have really fall on the west side of town. And with that development on the west side of town, that will drive the retail sector that we don't have right now within the city center, as well as overall growth in general. And that has to be controlled smartly. But we must have that housing growth there on the west side in order to really, I guess, create the customer base that's needed to not only support the retail businesses that are here now, but what are the new retail businesses that we also desire within city center, and that goes to the north end as well. There's two areas. There's I kind of divide our future opportunities in two separate retail sectors. There is the north end, and that is going to be your pass by, your commuter, your pass by retail sector, much like Arlington is to us. We don't live in Arlington, but we pass by. We use their services. Uh, they take our money and we drive back home. And then there is the community retail sector that is more city center that will focus on the areas of both the east side and west side, those residents. But without having that west side development, the retail sector that we have right now, they will struggle. And so, in order to have business, there must be customers, and they don't have the customer base, unfortunately, right now, in order to support themselves and what their desires are. And so, that's a large part of what will really be the city growing forward and moving forward.
Yeah, and that's always been like the catch 22 of Kennedale since we started on this path around 2005 was how do we grow and how do we, expand? And it's always been a population thing. Like we want the sales tax to increase so we can decrease the responsibility on the property tax. But for a business to come in, we had to be at a population point. For example, we just hit 10,000. For the last 15 years of me and my involvement, it's been around 8,000. But now that you hit that 10,000 marker, that sets a whole new door open for possible retail or what could possibly be around here. Same when you get to 15,000 and 25,000 and then 50,000 and 150,000. So there's these markers how you get an HEB if you have 70,000 people like in Mansfield did. And so those have always been markers, but it's been the things if you want less property tax or the responsibility of the landowners, either share the wealth by expanding or which also will should increase sales tax revenue around here, which it's starting to. This is the first year, if you were looking at the city council meeting last month, I believe, where they were showing a 3% increase in sales tax on, which is huge. That was a big thing. I took a picture of it, sent it to former mayors and former city councilmen and said, look, this is what you guys started years ago, and it's starting to find finally fruit. And a lot of that was population expansion around DFW. Or we're about to be bigger than New York City in the next 8 years as population. That's crazy to me. And that's obviously the values of our homes have increased by tad because of that expansion as well. So it's one of those things that it inspires people, and I get that, and it inspires people to want to step up and do that. I've always felt the taxing is a little upside down. I use city services more than anything, like police, fire, streets, parks, things like that. But of the bracket of taxes, it's one of the lowest as far as the part of it. I don't maybe use the hospital, for example, once in 20 years. I used TCC in my younger years to get to UTA. But other than that, I haven't used them since, and that's just some of the bigger cuts. And obviously, the school district is a separate taxing entity, and I have 4 kids, so it's actually worth the cost to me as far as the bigger piece of that pie. But why does the county get more when I need more roads or we need the library and things like that? And that's why the council in the past as well has reached out to the county and said, hey, give us some of that taxing money back so we can build this bridge or build this road. And you've seen that if you've been here for a while, you've seen how roads have expanded and got wider and projection. So, but it's one of
I
those
think
things
there's
I wish we
definitely a
could
lot
fix.
more we could do.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
It's one of those things like everybody wants
before
a
we
road
move
and
on
great.
to
Roads cost
Before
millions.
we move on
Yeah.
to next question, I wanted to ask Ryan because I hear a lot about you saying about the growth and retail and moving the, west side and everything, but I didn't quite hear why you're running.
Well, truly,
What got
why
you
at
involved?
this time I'm running, what got me involved? It was really, I have a great business that really kind of runs on its own. I'm the president of the company, but after 22 years, that company, I have a great leadership team. They are managing the team greatly. They know what our direction is. They're growing, and I was wanting to really do what is next for myself and what can I do. What can I do that will help others? We're very involved with Fort Worth ISD and corporate giving because our business is based in Fort Worth, and I wanted to get more involved here locally within our city and find out really why some of the things that I've questioned, why are they what they are? And a government is different than business ownership. It is. There is a difference. And so I have really been educating myself on those differences and what that takes. And the city is a business nonetheless, but there are differences. I cannot have that hallway conversation and give quick direction and expect it to be done tomorrow. It doesn't work that way. But working with the different members of the city leadership and those things, I've learned a lot this past year. What I have learned on the business side, though, is culture. And culture is something that is more than just a word. It's something that you have to build, and it doesn't happen overnight. It's something that really takes a lot of true intentional effort. And they are small things and they're big things. I remember the first city council meeting I went to roughly 2 years ago. It was very sterile. There was no collaboration, no eye contact, and no communication that I felt like that should have been. If you go to one of, we have weekly management meetings. We are there's communication, there's collaboration, there's discussion, there's disagreement, there's agreement. And when I went to the first city council meeting, there wasn't any of that. It was very sterile, and that resonated with me, and that correlated into maybe the lack of progress that I wish I've seen as an outside citizen. Maybe that's why. And so I want to be a part of that collaboration effort. And that includes agreement, but that includes disagreement. But there has to be some type of conclusion at the end of that discussion that moves us forward. And I believe I can be one of those pieces as a part of a city council.
That
Okay,
answer that question for you?
great. I no, we were talking about growth, and I know the question was more around what caused us to want to join city council and run. And so I wanted to hear that from you. It
Sure.
sounds like we're very aligned on wanting to bring back trust and culture, like you said.
No, it's true. Very true. The culture and trust. I mean, culture that creates so many different opportunities. And you start talking about our city departments. We are a small town. And so the opportunities that we have on the latter side, when it comes to uh, public services or the fire department, our police department, we don't have a huge ladder of opportunity. And that's not our fault. That is the same common problem that all small towns have. But it is important that we have the culture that supports them. We that we support them both on the financial side, and we are competitive on salaries, and and that we provide that support. There's a lot of things that go into culture, small and large, and it's important to us that we have that culture, that we can discuss and we can disagree, but at the end there's collaboration and we can move forward, and there must be progress that comes out of every conversation. And it might not be what we all want to hear, and we can't make everyone happy, unfortunately. And as a business owner, that's really hard to that's hard to accept, but it's true. We can't. But we can maintain a stable direction and provide a collaboration as a whole and work together. And I simply want to be part of that.
I completely agree with the culture aspect of it. A lot, actually, if you work in Canada, it's because of the culture. We just recently, we got wages up to par to where it's competitive, and we've gotten some of the best people in the state as far as directors over the years as well. Some of the top people in the state. And because of that. But it's the culture. They wanted the small town feel that, if you talk to First Fence and ask them why they moved their United States headquarters over here in Kennedale, Texas, they say because people are nice here. That's the first thing out of their mouth. It is the culture, and it's a huge difference. If you see the signs coming into Dallas, you'll see it says Plano police officers make $117,000, which is a lot of money. If you're after money, or if you're after the thrill or more active kind of 911 calls all night long, there's Plano for you. They'll pay you really well. But if you're looking for more reserved or community-oriented policing, or fire department for that matter, Canada is one of the best places I would say for that. And that's because of culture. And it's huge, I think, in any organization. All right, ready to move on? Okay.
Sure.
Uh, Next question is to you, Ryan. What is the one area of the budget where you believe the city is overspending, and what would you do differently?
It was a great question, Melissa. And honestly, I do not have one direct answer. I met with our finance director, Jonathan Horton, roughly 6 weeks ago and walked through the P&L there of the city with him in order to one, educate myself more so on where we were and what opportunities there may be. Like really just to have a better understanding, because the city P&L is much different than a business P&L, although the terms are often very common. What I was most interested in, and there with your question is not really where we are spending the money, but it's the thought process that goes both before that choice is made and thereafter. It's very easy to say yes and vote yes to spend X amount of money on X investment. But what is the secondary thought or what's the long term approach of that expense? There was a post I made several weeks ago that's price versus cost or cost versus price. And there is a difference, and there's a huge difference. The price is what you see on the price tag, the cost is what that price has, along with all of your indirect costs. So your direct costs, your indirect costs added together, those are your true costs. And so what I've questioned I haven't really questioned, but this is what I would do if elected and join the council, is simply to put more thought into the long-term cost of something and not just what today's price is, but what would be the cost next week, next year, and 5 years from now.
Excellent. Yeah, just the cost of wood, for example, has gone down 400% from 2021 when it went up 800, 900%. And that's not helpful for construction or government or whatever. Melissa?
Yeah. I'm glad you're thinking long term, Ryan. I too am thinking long term, and I don't think it's just one specific area. It's a pattern of spending and a pattern of a lack of strategy in how we're spending. Um, we're paying our taxes as residents, and we expect to see value for it. So we're still leaving, like I said, for basic services, going to the hospital, going to, you and I are both Catholic. There's not a Catholic church in Kennedale. We're looking at what are the different things that we can bring into Kennedale. And one of the things is retail. And we're looking at what other areas are we spending on that maybe we shouldn't be. I'm looking at the small things like naming of roundabouts and putting new placards on a windmill that's close to where you and I live. There's the patching and not doing the proper job. When we were redoing Swiney Hyatt Road, my driveway now, my alarm on my car goes off every time I go to the road because it's not even with my driveway. So what sort of things are we spending on? And like you say, the cost of that. So we may have gotten a good deal on repairing roads, but the cost of it is that there's still repair to be done even after those rebuildings are done. Because I have a neighbor with a whole sign out here about how her driveway was not repaired properly
Oh, I know where you live
after
now.
work done by Kennedale. So, how are we really spending our money? And then the things that are nice to have as a resident, you and I both know when costs are high and prices are high, we have to kind of tighten the belt and not spend so much on our wants, but really focus on our needs, like infrastructure, making sure it's done right, making sure that we get the best vendor out there and the best person out there to do it. So I say, as far as the budget comes, we need to get back to basics, stop overspending. We need to go for infrastructure, probably less beautification, as much as it hurts my heart to say that, because we want beautification. We want a great city to live in, but there might be some areas we can scale that back. But overall, just, our tax dollars are paying for everything we do in the city. And we need to make sure that we understand where it's going to and that there's an agreement and there's a strategy for it. Not just, oh, this popped up, someone suggested. So, yes, let's do that. I'm looking specifically at a property purchase that was done in special session where we paid over market value for a piece of property and we didn't do an environmental assessment, even though it's been a salvage yard for decades. So that's something that a normal title company would require, would not even entertain purchasing without. So why are we doing that? And what are the plans for the property? If we plan to resell, who's going to be able to buy it without that environmental assessment? So I think there needs to be more strategy to our spending.
Ryan, any rebuttal?
The strategy, that's a perfect word for it. It's long-term thinking. And so there is a short term, there's something that pops up and we decide, hey, this is a great idea, but what is the long-term cost of that? And you mentioned it quickly, curb appeal. I think I think we all agree on curb appeal. We would love to. There is curb appeal opportunities, and they don't have to be large. The roundabouts, just like you mentioned, right around the corner from both of us. Um, I'm sure there were uh,
They're
that
not
didn't
done yet,
happen
guys.
overnight.
They're nowhere close to being done yet. It's just the beginning of a bigger project. But go ahead.
Yes, and no, and there is,
Trust me, I get a
that's
lot of
what,
emails about this.
of course, and that's a part of. It goes back to earlier conversation. Also, I believe that both points were made up, and that is some type of communication clarity. There, overall communication has greatly improved in the city, in just in the past 5 years, I believe, with the new city app, with the weekly, not coffee chats, but the weekly discussions that the city manager provides and the website. But there's a lot of, when the first roundabout, they began construction on that, everyone's asking, what are we doing? Well, that information really isn't there. And so if we could really enhance that communication and yes, the information is within the city council, the videos. Myself and Melissa, we both know if you attend city council meetings, there's less. There's less than six participants, not participants, but there's very few people that are there at the city council meetings, which I would love to see more. Um, but that's not just us. That's something that's everyone, but something I still believe could be improved upon. But communication overall to the city and the citizens, or not the city, but our citizens, the people who live here and our citizens, what is that long-term plan there on the roundabouts? Because you're right, there is a long-term plan, but it really has not been published or not easily visible. And so right now you're taking those questions and
On the
we've all
buzz,
seen the post
Baldwin posted it
online.
on the buzz. He
But
I'm
the
actually
buzz
sorry.
is a
long
social
little
media
thing about it.
site.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I
it is
think
on the
the
site
fact
too.
that you're getting questions means that things aren't being communicated
Sure.
and they need to be better communicated.
And I think I said this on the other coffee chat, it's out there. You just have to go get it. I think a lot of people expect that knock on the door and saying, here's what we're doing. But we plan to do it, and when we get there, then we start knocking on doors and telling people we're doing it. But the information is there, and the city's done a great job, I think, from previous years, even before that, just because there's more tools nowadays to get it out there that we all use, like social media, for example. I know the city manager's been really wanting to get back to doing his weekly little videos that he used to do for the last couple of years, updating citizens on things that were coming. But in general, it's on the website as well.
See, and that's where something I would like to bring to city council is more communication because we're relying so much on people having to seek out information rather than meeting them where they are. We're using social media, we're using websites, but what about those who don't have reliant internet access or
Mhm.
the technology savvy? We see that we have, tech with an expert at the library. That's a great start, but being able to reach people where they are, if our residents aren't going to specific social media sites, then they don't know anything. So
Well,
we
there's an
need to be
email
going out
newsletter
to
as
them.
well. There's a newsletter that people can sign up that comes out monthly as well. It used to be in the water bill
Right,
back in the day, but now we save money
right.
on email. And I can tell you, everybody's got an email, and we're not even talking about even a minor percentage of the people. Let's say less than 1% don't have email or not tech savvy. Yeah, the 99% do. And the library is a great place to get information, for example.
Mhm.
And a lot of the people who don't have the techs, they do go to the library and use the computers there all the time. And then, of course, our seniors are have a big calendar with things of what's going on is there. I guess the point I'm making is you gotta we got to ask. You got to meet people to ask. And I get stopped all the time, just in general public and with people with questions. And that's just because people know who I am. But that's still enough. It's we're out in the community. You're there. You have to ask and ask the right questions. For example, you're talking about the purchase of the old Big Red Auto Salvage. Um, uh, there's a there's a lot of information if people would just ask. First of all, the EDC purchased that land. They purchased a lot of land in that area, and the whole idea was to buy up much land as possible. And now we have a big chunk of land to redevelop for a developer in the area. Now that land is being repurposed. It's going to be rented out. The buildings are going to continue the use as it was before, so we'll make the EDC some money as well. There's also a dog park being built there by the former owner as well, Ron Sturgeon. And so the use of it is going to be used, and it's not overpaid.
So
The original
we're putting a
cost,
dog park on top of environmentally unsound land.
there's absolutely nothing that says that is unsound land. Even the water studies done right next to where the creek, where everything would pour into, done by TECQ, done by UTA, independent studies, there's nothing in the water to indicate anything that's wrong coming from that property. Just
But we
because
don't know because an
usually,
environmental study wasn't done.
usually, and you had mentioned even the deed property people, they will ask if there's like an underground tank. So if they had an underground tank that stored oil, then that's an issue and there's a concern. But there's nothing like that in the history of the property. It was farmland for the majority of that. And yes, properties do have oil and they do have, so all properties do have that. But it's not enough to trigger an expensive, which you're saying that's an overspending thing, an expensive study that's not necessary, where there's no key indicators. Plus, the land was cheap. I think the original offer from the former tenant, he told me it was 6 million that Sturgeon was asking for. We got it for 1.5, which is it's about 17 acres. So we got it pretty cheap. But again, the idea is to gobble up that land, and now we have a bigger land property saying, "Hey, developer, come make a shopping mall over here," or things we want. We have all these properties, or even potentially something as crazy as like a casino if they pass casino laws. I'm not saying let's have a casino there. I'm just saying something like that because of our location and we have all this property. It could be something like that, and something that big they will do their own studies and fix whatever it is. In the meantime, we're the
So
landowners
they
that are
have
renting
to
it
do
out
their own studies.
if they want to. Again, there's nothing indicating there that there's anything that could be a possibility of anything wrong there.
We
And
don't
it's
know that without an environmental study is what I'm getting at.
yeah.
And for 1.5 million before we spend that kind of money,
Again, that's the
it's
EDC.
worth it
That's not
for,
our tax dollars. That's sales tax dollars that are cut up to EDC. Economic Development Corporation is a separate entity from the city. It's run like a corporation to encourage business growth. So
it's
it's
not
their
completely
purpose.
separate if it requires a city council vote.
They did their vote. We approved the spending of the thing, but it's still their property. It's under their entity. They're the ones that are going to decide how to sell it, what to sell it.
Yeah,
But that's just again, I go back to the example. That's just one example. If people just have a conversation, and David and I had that debate on the dais last month as well.
right.
Of course, there's both points of views out there. It's still a good purchase, I think, and overall, again, it'll be beneficial in the long-term plan, as Ryan was speaking earlier, which is our future land use. We do have a plan, and it's on the website that the community has been involved in, and we've repeatedly every 5 years have updated and edited it. So there is a long-term vision that the community has been involved with since I can remember, since we started it. And part of that is buying up those properties over there and having the EDC sell those properties to a big developer.
Yeah, and I know Ryan, you're on EDC, is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. So you also had a part in pro proposing this purchase and saying it would be best for the city. Do you want
Yes.
to add anything?
Sure. No, it is a part of the long-term plan of the city. And as I mentioned earlier, that north end of the city is going to be retail. There is retail development that is planned, and that land purchase not only does that lock out the possible salvage yard usage, but it allows us to really control the economic growth that happens on that north end. And at that retail value that was negotiated, yes, it's above TAD value, but that's normal. We all want our TAD values to be less than our retail value. because that's less than property taxes that we each pay. So you can't go off of the TAD values and the market values uh, that we had presented to us. Really said this value was fair, and so that 17 acres that allows us to really really direct that retail growth that goes into that northern section. I apologize for that cat, I believe. But I know I was definitely a part of that decision. And I believe that long term, that was in our best interest and allows us to really control what that retail growth is moving forward and makes it easier there long term, also not long term but maybe even short term. It makes it easier there for those outside developers that have interest to come in and make that large purchase and present to the city and our citizens this development with these new opportunities.
So,
Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
question just on that, because you're talking about bringing in outside developers and building up and everything. And I know in my conversations, I've heard from a lot of residents just not wanting those outside developers because of the fear of apartments and things like that. We have plenty of retail space that is still up for rent. Like I mentioned at the very beginning, we see cycle through retailers because they can't survive. What would your plan be for bringing in retailers to those already existing open retail space rather than doing new development?
Which retail opportunities or spaces at this time are you referring to, Melissa?
Office space and retail space that's in Old Town. There's the old Frost Bank building that's
That's
empty.
that's been rented out for a year. It's a pool company. They've just been slow to move their headquarters there, but they've been renovating it for like 9 months. It's a pool company, is
Okay,
what they
I
said.
haven't seen anything there, so that's
Yeah,
why,
there's a sign up
yeah, and
front that
maybe
says
that's
pool.
where some residents may be also confused because there's not that communication of what's coming in.
Well, that's up to
Um,
the business owner, wouldn't you agree? That he'll announce when he's ready to open his doors that I'm here. Would you agree with that?
yeah,
Yeah.
they can announce, but that's what I'm saying that, when EDC is involved in certain things, that's something that, going to meetings can help. But how are we getting information out to folks
Mm-hmm.
and making sure that it's not these story Alta Landing apartments coming in? And that's the concern that I've heard from residents.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, no, that's fair. No, I think on the retail side, the plan will come, the actual direct plan. I don't have a direct plan. I want to create the opportunities, though, uh, and the interest there from outside developers who may come in and they will present their plans not only to the P&Z boards, the EDC boards, but as well as to city council. And so we are simply creating the opportunity. And what that becomes, that only time will tell. I mean, we know simply by looking around our city, not our city, but our neighbors, there is a lot of growth opportunity, and there's a lot of growth in North Texas. We have seen huge growth, and we have a great location. We are a small town with by far the best location in the Metroplex, and
Yeah.
I think having control over that northern sector, my personal vision, and this is only my personal vision, is that we can create the retail sector that's on the north end of the city uh, that will create the tax base, the sales tax base uh, th- that will help the overall city budget annually, but without bringing in all of that into directly into city center. There will be retail development in the city center, but that will not be here in my mind until there is housing development there on the west side, because they need traffic, they need the customer base, and so without that customer base, that retail sector, they will always be challenged. But if we could have some of the large retail that type of development. At the north end, we get the benefit of the sales tax, but we get the savings of the we get the savings though by not having that large traffic and that large infrastructure investment that would be required if that retail moved further south.
Yeah, we're looking at
Yeah,
a
I
metro.
understand there's an entertainment kind of district plan for the north side, so I'm looking forward to that. Um,
The south
would
side
you
too.
step down from EDC if you were brought onto council?
That was a question posted online, and I answered, and my response was yes, if in fact all three council members. Right now, there are two council members. I'm sorry, there are two council members that are on EDC currently, and if I was to be elected, that would be three. My current term, I was elected to, or not elected, appointed only to fill in and complete the existing term that was left vacant. And that term ends this year, I believe this
Okay.
October.
Yeah, that
And
was my
so that was, and so if I was elected, I would have conversations with the other two council members and decide who would like to stay. And if the other two, if they were to choose, they wanted to stay on EDC, I would I will I would resign because I do believe that three city council members on the EDC is three too many. Not three too many, two too
Three
many.
too many, yeah. I agree. I agree with you, Ryan. Like
Do you want to
I
expand on
I
that a little
look
bit?
at the other boards and I see that they have less involvement. So I don't know why EDC needs so much involvement from city council, especially as you say, Jeff, they're separate
They are.
from there. So we wouldn't want a conflict of interest.
Do you want to respond, Ryan? You want me to?
The, there is a rule. The EDC requires one city council person
It's
at
two.
this time
But
to be on the
yeah,
board. And I believe Jeff has a better understanding, but there is a requirement that city council has a voice on EDC.
But one,
I
not
believe I
three.
believe it's two. I think
Two? Okay.
council a couple years ago because it was just hard to get volunteers. I mean, it's just hard to get people to say step up to the plate. That they were going to fill in the third spot with city council, which is perfectly legal. It's nothing illegal about it. But as you obviously have concerns about multiple council members, we heard that last election. Even though I'm the business owner of the three, I opted to step down, and I asked Ryan, who's a business owner, to replace me as the business owner on that council or that advisory board. But it is
Yeah.
separate. But they have their own kind of charter, which is the rules, and you can see it on. Hopefully, I think the EDC website is up by now. But I believe it's on there, or if it's on the city website. But there are rules that guide like that, and EDC is like a sub separate corporation. For me, I feel like it's sometimes a shield is how the cities use it all across Texas, by the way. But there's multiple uses for it. It's a type B, for example. A type B, and this is what I'm hoping EDC will do one day. Type B can make a water park, for example, and they can fund it through sales tax. And with two hotel coming, that there's going to be a little
Mhm.
bit bigger buffer there. So we can make a community pool, which is everybody's asking for community pool over by the new baseball fields that are coming and put a couple slides on it. And guess what? That is a water park now because we added a couple slides. So it could be like a two birds, one stone for a community. And that's what hopefully the EDC will start looking into in the future as their coffers are getting bigger and bigger. And just a couple years ago, it was not that big. And in the next couple years, it's going
And
to get even larger.
right. And I'm not raising this as I know something that other people don't.
No, I think people have a right to be
I'm
concerned.
not well versed
Yeah.
in EDC. I'm just reflecting back what I've been hearing as I've been door knocking and
Yeah.
talking to residents. So I'm like, that's a good question. Let me ask Ryan since we're having this coffee chat.
It's a great
Sure.
question. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead, Ryan.
And this is my fourth month on EDC, and that was a board that I signed up to join really right before last year's campaign. And because that is one of my strengths as a business owner and something I had interest in. And I've worked with the Mansfield EDC myself as a business owner and Fort Worth EDC as a business owner. And what I was, there was a very quick learning curve when I joined the EDC board here within the city is that there are two types of EDC boards, type A and type B. Type A is very limited, not limited, but focused on business development. And that was my experience with Mansfield as well as Fort Worth. And I had successful negotiations with both, and it was very clean. When it comes to the Type B EDC, which we have here, they have a third clause, or there is a third point of interest, and that is called quality of life improvements,
Mhm.
which is a very vague and very broad
On purpose.
pool
Yeah.
of opportunities. So it could be a pool, it could be a park enhancement,
Anything
it
that
could be
promotes
almost
business. Yeah.
anything. It really could be, which is very broad and vague, and that is very not vague, but it's very broad, and that was eye opening for me because I was going in looking at a Type A EDC, and I did not I was not expecting the Type B, nor did I understand it existed at that time. And so there has been a learning curve there, and there are pros and cons to that type of EDC. And I think it's because of the size of our city
Yep.
why we formatted the EDC in that direction and chose that format. And but it does require check and balances because it is so broad. Uh, it could be a pool, it could be a park, it could be anything that helps a business. And so those funds do have to be they have to be cared for, and they have to be challenged. And that has challenged me in the past 4 months.
Yeah, and just to expand about the city council on boards and how you look around, our charter is pretty clear on a few things. One, council people can't have more than one elected, so I can't be a commissioner and down here. Two, when we finish, we can't be on a board or committee for 2 years. During our tenure too, we can't be on a board or committee. I had to step down, as for example, from the Parks Board and the BOA when I got elected. And so we do have clear lines. The only ones that don't are the ones that are separate from our city bubble, our structure that we have that's charted out in our charter. And those exceptions are EDC and our TERS board. Obviously, a TERS board is a county thing. It's made up of city council commissioners, somebody from the hospital district, somebody from TCC. It's a board that hasn't been met in a while because that TERS hasn't really expanded. Once if ever, and I hear somebody just bought it. I heard somebody just bought it with the track over by Ryan's new house. Once that kind of expands, which I'm on that TERS board, I plan to call the commissioner's office, call the TCC, and say, hey, we need to meet and get back on track on this. So it just hasn't. It's been dead, so it hasn't met in over years. But those are the two boards that I can think of off the top of my head that are outside the scope of our what we have under our charter. Now, Ryan was talking a little bit about his vision, so I want to segue over to his question to you, Melissa, and I'll let you come back and expand if you want to. But his question to you was, what is your vision for the city in 5 years, and what were the steps required to reach the vision?
Yeah. With this question, I mean, Ryan, thank you for asking it, but I think it's putting the cart before the horse, quite frankly. Having a vision for 5 years when this is a 2-year term and, there's no guarantee that you'll be elected to serve again, depending on what you do now. And so I think we need to be worried about what are we doing now? And how did we get here where our taxes are high, where we're spending kind of out of line, I think. And what the real challenges are, we need to be focused on gaining the trust of our residents back and getting that kind of coordination with the government, with the municipality. Our residents are questioning where is our money going? So we need to be able to communicate with them. We need to be able to focus on getting the foundation right and focus on getting that trust, getting that spending under control and a balanced budget, one that we see that really benefits everyone, and that we have more community involvement, we bring people in, and really get them kind of understanding where we are today. So the 5 year vision, I haven't set a 5 year vision. I really think we could do with another strategic plan. I think the last strategic plan was 15 years ago or from 2015. Sorry,
I believe it was 2 years ago. It was right before
That is correct.
2, 3 years ago. We just
maybe I'm thinking of the 2015
no,
plan.
no. Since I've been on council, we have done all of them, I believe. So we've updated our codes, our future land use plan. We've pretty much done them all, even our transportation plan. I think the parks one is the only
Okay.
one that hasn't been updated in since
That's great.
2000.
I wasn't able to find it on the website, so I'm working from a
No,
2015
you're fine. You're
that,
fine. You're fine.
that
Uh,
I was wondering why haven't we done more? But still, I think we need more community involvement, like you said, on EDC, having folks fill in, having folks, the people I've talked to, I've seen people who are on parks and the Parks Board who are on P&Z, and they're great. They're passionate about the community, and if we can spread that further, so that we get more folks involved and also get them talking to their neighbors and really understanding what council is doing, so that there's that trust there. I think that really is where we need to be focusing. 5 years from now, we have it in the back burner, and we know there is a plan, but we need to really focus on now.
Ryan, you kind of talked about this before in the last question, but do you want to expand or rebuttal on your question?
Sure. I honestly believe you have to have a 5 year vision. If not, yes, of course, there are decisions that have to be made today that affect us all. But if there's no 5 year vision or there's no 10 year vision, then your decisions you're making short term. And these need to be long term decisions that are made, because that is where some of the high costs that we've experienced, such as water rates, that's something that 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 was short-term thinking versus long-term thinking, and that is what put us where we are today with water rates, or what has happened over the past 8 to 10 years are related. And so I think there must be there has to be a vision, and those visions may be different, but what do we want? I have two children. They're 10 and 12. What do I want for them in 10 years and 5 years for the city? And yes, there are short term decisions, but we also always have to be thinking about the long term side of it and what the opportunities are, and then what that long term, what is coming next, whether that's us on council and or someone else. There always has to be this vision. If not, we're making decisions blindly.
But I think we have that outlined in our comprehensive plan and our strategic vision. That's why we have those things. So I
Yeah. So we have those things so we can pass it on. Like you said, I might not be elected next year. You might not get reelected. We've had such a political push and pull for over 10 years now around here. But the thing that's been constant has been that strategic plans. And we've passed that literally by generational of councils since they kind of enacted it in 2005. And that's what the whole point is. I always said that term limits on council, I think, is the foolish thing in the world. Like term limited president, term limited governor, I'm okay with that. But on council, you're really one taking away the power of the voters. They want their person to represent it forever. That's up to the voter. But putting that aside, how do you push something forward? I'm a big parks guy. Well, Melissa, let's say you take over and you're not a parks girl, let's just say, and I'm in middle projects. If you don't take the hand off, things will never get done, and things like term limits, in my opinion. And I use parks as an example because it takes you 10 years to get what park done. But that's why we
am
have the
very
plan.
much a Parks girl.
Exactly. I know you are. I know you are. We talked. But that's what the plan is for. It's not like a my plan or your plan. It's our plan, and the community is the one that did it of all the stakeholders from people who are in charge, the two kitty cats, and just local people who we asked. A lot of the council at the time picked people from the community to go in there, and we've had different personalities. We had about 40 people, I believe, on that one. So it is an our thing, and that's how we pass that vision on to the future because It's finite. We're not going to be here in the future. Some of the things that I hope, that I have my vision for, I might not see in my lifetime. It'll happen, but maybe not in my lifetime, and certainly not into people who were on council 10, 20 years ago. And that's what's important to have those plans. I think you're both right on this. You do need a short term, you long term. I think the city's kind of stature with this now is every 5 years we should look at this and redo it with the community. Every 2.5, maybe tweak it, but every 5 do a full kind of overhead with our strategic plan and make sure. And if you look at the strategic plans for the last 20 years, it hasn't really changed much, just little minor things. I know Mr. Michael and I were pushing a entertainment district in the north that you were talking about, Melissa, and we also pushed one in the south, right around Ryan's new home, right in front of him, basically, in hopes that Mansfield, when they grow down there, we have things in place to tell the future, like, hey, this is probably a good idea if you start directing our development in this area into a entertainment idea, or directing this area with more homes, for example. And that's how you restrict, by the way, apartment complexes is in our codings, in our zonings, actually. And the state has been
Mm.
taking away our powers. For example, I'm okay with a 20% threshold for citizens around a development to get signatures and bring it before council, and which thus enacts a over supermajority to pass a zoning law. I'm okay with that. The state came in and said, nope, 60%. That's impossible. And even from a pro-growth councilman, I don't like that, because I do want the citizens to have a fire break in this situation, and have a say in what's going on. Now nobody has a say. And the fear coming up with the next years on the state, they're coming hard. On property tax, I love no property tax, but that's how the city gets funded. And so there is this fear here that the state, because they're mad at Houston or they're mad at Dallas, they're taking it out on all of us. And if you go talk to other cities, like I do TML events, I just got back from Round Rock training for leadership, talking to other people from around the state. They have the same fears too, that their hands are tied. What does the state know about what Kennedale needs? What does Fort Worth know what the Kennedale needs? Like, what does the county know? Like, the power should rely on the city. I'm not saying we should be over the sovereignty of the state, but the state has to understand that it's not a state without the cities, and it's always been that way since the beginning of Texas. And that's the fear. But to go back, that's what that is there for, is to kind of pass the buck and tell the future, here is what we're thinking. And if that changes, great. We'll change it every 5 years or so, I think is a good number for that. Any rebuttals or expansions on that?
No, I think, Jeff, you've mentioned twice Ryan's new house on the west side. So
Yeah, he's got a new house.
congratulations.
I can't wait till he does an open house.
Um,
Invite me
Hopefully an
over.
environment, a entertainment district over there doesn't disturb your peace.
Well, he's already got the racetrack, so he knew what he was getting himself into.
Yeah, yeah.
No, that I did. We look forward to it. Everything's everything's in line except for my broken foot.
Mhm.
All right, let's go on to the next one. This is back to you, Ryan. What sets you apart from your opponent?
That's like I told Melissa. That's a very hard question because honestly, we haven't had a chance to really. Um, uh, this is our first true discussion, honestly, and there's so much more to have done. And I truly hope, no matter uh, this next month and what happens, that we continue these conversations because you have two caring outside citizens who want to be involved in the city. And so I think it's a great start. And so I look forward to other conversations. So, what would set me apart? I really, that's difficult to say. So, I'm simply going to talk about myself. And that is, I am a business owner. We have a business that's based in Fort Worth. We were based in Rendon, and we hit 35 years last year, just under 300 employees and 300 families. And we've been fortunate, we've been blessed, and we've been lucky. And I have a great leadership team, and we have really been successful because of the strategies that myself and my partner have put into place and that we have built from. And I want to bring some of that business knowledge and that business strategy back to the city level because the city is a business. It operates differently than your normal corporate business, but there there's many ways and there's many things that overlap, and there's a lot of opportunity and a lot I have to give, I think, really not only to the city but our community as a whole, when it comes to both the finances as well as the culture and community side, and what is important and what creates long-term success. And it doesn't happen within one term. It doesn't happen within two terms. It's something that has to be built and adopted, and it takes time to do. And I've been able to do it within our business. I love our city. I've lived here within the area within 30 years, the past 30 years. I want my family. We are relocating after 13 years. Instead of moving outside the city, we're just moving to the west side. And it's a hard move for us because we love where we're at. We love our neighbors and we love this community, and we are reinvesting into it. And this will be our home for life. And I want to see that visible progress. I want to see more community engagement, involvement, participation. The events that we host as a city each year are really fun. They are, and they attract a lot of people, and that's that's been fun to experience. Even more so the past 18 months or so than a lot of cities. There's a lot of cities that don't have that, and that's what makes us unique. But growth is coming, and we need to control that growth and help direct it. And I believe with my business experience, that will help me do that. And not alone though. I'm only one person, one out of five council members, and the mayor. And then you have the, the city departments that then work under. And I think culture is huge, and my financial background is will be beneficial to all involved. But I'm very excited at this time for what is to come and what our city has. There are so many opportunities that we have, and that is who I am.
Melissa?
Yeah. Find it odd that when I asked this question, you said we don't really know each other, but there's there's been plenty of opportunity for discussion. We met at the Rotary Club Chili Supper. I know we talked a little bit at the city council meeting, but also I think this is one of the major differences between you and I is that you're coming at this from a business perspective, but for work, I do research. Like that is what I do for my trade. And so being able to um, be prepared and being able to know my opponent has been something that I've scoured your Facebook page, I've scoured your website, knowing the differences between us, and it took me by surprise that you have started building a house in the West Side, and now it makes sense a little bit more about your emphasis on residential on the West Side. But I think the major thing that sets us apart is how seriously I take this role and the preparation I put behind it. Um, from the beginning, even before I considered running and what seat I was going to run into, I've been intentional about my actions. I went to the LBJ school at UT, got some information, and applied and finished through my coursework at women's campaign school to learn how to campaign properly and how to campaign legally, making sure that I know when I have to fill out forms, when I have to put them in through so that they're not late, they're not missing. I know that, okay, when I have a treasure, I have to fill out forms regardless of what I spent. I want to be transparent about everything that I'm doing. So I line item everything, regardless of whether I have to or not. I've made sure I was prepared by researching city policies and doing what I could to be as prepared as possible for questions. I've not served on city council. I've not been on one of those boards as far as the different boards that we can participate on. So yes, there's lack of information there, but I've shown the work to try to get myself up to speed as much as possible. I've also gone talking to residents, knocking on doors, not just of friends, but of everyone I possibly can, door to door. You'll see me pulling my wagon with signs in my neighborhood and really having real conversations and not only talking, but listening to what they want. And that's where a lot of these questions came from, is questions that residents have. So hopefully we'll see some more of that at the League for Women Voters conversation. But really, this isn't just about showing up to one meeting or showing up to special session meetings, which I did, but also showing up when it matters, when it's inconvenient. Coming to the first fence grand opening yesterday. It was amazing. It was great. I got to hug the business owners and say, welcome to Kennedale, welcome to the US, right? And so being willing to be intentional and put that work in, I think that's really what sets us apart. At the end of the day, I want residents to know that they have someone who's committed to serve their interests and who has put in the work to be prepared and to be engaged and is working for them.
Any rebuttal, Ryan?
Sure. I believe going back, if you look at last year's campaign and then you look at the actions, the engagement, my involvement in the city there after the elections this past year, you will see my dedication to the city and the time that I've spent, the time away from my family, the time away from my business, the time and just my devotion to the city and to our success moving forward, without a doubt. Joining the Rotary Club, being a part of the Chili Supper, that event, yes, we met. Of course, I was happy to take a picture with you because we are neighbors. And I was working that event though, so unfortunately, that conversation that time was short. You're right. And so, but being involved in the barbecue shut off, that cook off, or being involved in the dog in the park, the kids fishing event, the library events have been a lot of fun this past year and a half. And quite honestly, if you go around to not only my neighbors, but the city itself, I've really made myself available and I'm very open and transparent and I'm very approachable. And there's a lot of things my children ask, do we have to? I'm like, well, you don't have to, but I do because I have a dedication to the city. And so there's a lot of a devotion that has been made. And so there's not much more I can really tell you except for I've been available and I've continued my effort after last year's campaign because it wasn't just a 1 year interest or a 1 year term or 2 year term, or it wasn't just this pop up. It was something that I have something to give to the city and I have a heart to do it. I have the overall desire to do it. I have the education to do it. And I have the I have the personal, I have the personality to do it and the personal skills to do it. And I'm here really to work for everybody. I can't, I will not agree with everyone. I will, but again, that's called collaboration. And that's what the city needs. And that's what really drives me is that one word. We have to collaborate in order to see progress. And that is something that that's a part of my business success. And that is what we need as a part of city council or even boards and overall as a city. I get along with everybody and I take that as a compliment. So thank you.
Yeah, I think it's interesting you mentioned that people with the city know who you are and because of your involvement. But I've been going to doors and everyone says, you're the first person to ever come to my door. And that's something that I noticed. And one of the reasons I'm running also is because I've noticed it's about the same group of folks who are always involved, and we need other people involved. And so I don't think it needs to be this little clique of folks who are involved. It should be, open for everyone.
With all
I
due respect to
completely
both
agree
of
with
you,
that.
wait. With all due respect to both of you, you're both brand new to this, which I'm excited. My moral of the story of this question would be, come on, Kennedy, get involved, please. Like we've been
Yes.
begging for years. I
Most
just
definitely. And my only one point there was you can ask, oftentimes when I refer to the city, I don't mean the city leadership. I don't mean the city departments. I'm our neighbors are everyone that I have breakfast with at Pit Stop Cafe in the mornings twice a week, or the people that I see at the park, or the neighbors that I have. That's what I call the city. It's not city leadership. It's not the city council. It's everyone who is here. And so you can ask anyone in city leadership. Up until last year's campaign, I knew nobody. I came in directly from the street. No one knew me. And that has evolved because I have put that dedicated effort into getting to know everyone that I can in order to move forward.
Yeah. No, I try also to get to know folks, and I think one of the things this has become obvious is that I know them, but they don't feel they know me. I think Jeff, you and I first formally met
Mhm.
years ago when I introduced myself during a hometown Christmas. And it's just now that we've actually been able to have conversations. Um, Same thing, Ryan, I wanted to introduce myself the first time I saw you at the city council meeting, but then, I think you said that time was running late, so you had to leave before we could get a chance to converse.
Yeah, I don't think serving
Sure.
for a long time is a bad word. Matter of fact, I mean, it's only going to be a small percentage of a small percentage of people that it would even consider stepping up and doing volunteer work or helping YMCA or Rotary Club, city boards or whatever, or just even showing up to some of these events. Matter of fact, or school for that matter, some of the school boards. And so I don't think it's necessarily bad words. I don't think it creates anything other than um, people who have leadership skills stepping up and trying to work together to push the city or the trustees for the school district forward. And I just think more people need to be involved. Like don't complain about it. Just come join a board. Come have a conversation. Come talk to us. Come show up to a city council meeting. Like I think Ryan, you made that point. There's only a couple people in there, unless it's a big deal. Then there's a lot of people in there. And so just, or at least watch YouTube. I can see the views. There's only a handful, 20. So if you look at the people who vote, which is around 800 people on average for us, only 20 people were watching, the YouTube clips of the coffee chats, for example. We're up to 60 from the one on Friday. It'll be more, but if it was to say 100, that's 1/8 of the people seeking that information. And so I think, again, it's in a small town. I don't think it's a big deal that we have people who've been on the EDC president for 20 years. I believe it is. I don't think that's a big deal as long as it's not stagnant, as long as it's not holding us back. And that we
Yeah.
have another fresh people. I try to inspire the next generation. I do a lot of stuff in the high school, for example. Get that next generation inspired, like I was when I was younger, to step up to the plate early in life and have a say or start getting mentors and getting educating themselves and understanding the whys and the hows. I think Melissa, you were
I
about to
think
say
that's
something.
great you bring that up, the mentoring, because you don't have to be a natural born leader or
True.
even seek a leadership role to participate.
Absolutely.
It's really about getting that trust back within the residents and with the younger generation to be able to say, okay, you can participate. And then from there, with mentoring, maybe you do become a leader. Maybe you do step into running like Ryan and I are for city council,
Mhm.
run for mayor. you know we can all hope for great things to come from the city.
Yeah, and Kendall's great. I think we all agree on that. There is no doubt. There's no question. Even when you go out to the greener community and we represent out there, we hear great things about Kennedale. So, and that's all we're all trying to do is keep it great. Make Kennedale
Yeah.
great again, right, guys? All right, let's go ahead. We'll go to the next question. This was Ryan's to you. Now we kind of touched on this, but I wanted the question to kind of go ahead because it directly talks about one of the line items, I guess. And so well, we've discussed this beforehand, but this is the Canada Observer Candidate Questionnaire from March 8th. Ms. Kobeck outlines the following potential solutions for reducing the tax burden on citizens, including no funding for new staff positions for at least the next 2 years, limit employee raises to cost of living raises only, no spending on engineering on engineering on projects that have no path to funding, and finally challenge each city department to reduce their 2027 budget by 5 to 10%. What are your opinions and proposals? The questions to you, Melissa.
Great. I love that you picked this specific person and her response out of all the responses there were, um, because these are the discussions that we need to be having about budget. We need to have these discussions. It's too integral to everything that we're doing to let it just be. And I love that you brought up her specific solution. Um, we need everyone's solution. It's only by hearing diverse voices that we can say, okay, here's Kovac's solution, here's Johnson's solution, here's Ryan Ray solutions and Melissa solutions, and this is how it all works together. And then we can pick the best and what works for our city. I'm not saying that her solution is wrong. I'm not saying it's right. It's a solution. And by gathering all of that, then we can bring fresh voices. We can create a custom solution that works for our city. Um, I don't want to harp on this. We talked about budget in the past, but we need to change how we approach our spending. All this small spending on wants versus needs, those little wants add up. I mean, if we maybe we only spent $80 per sign on that roundabout. Well, if we had saved that sign for the full thing, then and it adds up with roundabouts or other beautification things. If we saved it up, maybe we could actually fix Dick Price Road. Maybe we could do.
It's county road. Trust me, we're
It's
gonna
a
have
big
to.
one.
I just said to the city manager the other day, we have to do something about Dick Price. It's not a road, it's county
Yeah.
road, but part of it's being fixed. But yeah, you go ahead. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
So,
Dick Price.
so I think
This gets me going.
it's a huge concern for those who live
It is.
here, and whether it's county or not. I mean, they look at it and they're like, I live in Kennedale, why I like this,
Yeah.
and where are my tax dollars going to? So maybe that's what it is, and that's what I'm saying with the budget. We need to educate folks on the budget, not just post it online, but maybe have a roundtable. I'm committed to a roundtable every quarter to where we can discuss things. Maybe we do a presentation of here's how you read a budget, because Ryan, like you said, the P&L is different from a business. It's even if you're a business person, it's hard to read a budget for some folks. And so we need to sit everyone down and say, okay, here's what our budget is about. Maybe we record it on YouTube, and then that way people can see it if they're not able to attend the roundtable. But we need to slow down. We need to delay purchases. We need to ask more questions. Like I said, I'm a researcher by trade. I ask questions, and I ask questions and ask questions and ask questions until I am clear on what the root cause is and get down to that so that we can come up with strategic solution. So, I love that you asked this question. I love that you're willing to entertain someone else's proposal. I hope we entertain all six, all seven, all 13 that might come later down the road. Who knows? But it's only by having multiple opinions we can create a custom solution. So,
Right?
Okay. No, that's fair. And the question I asked there off of that one questionnaire is at that time, Ms. Kobeck, she had the outline. She provided a very clear, this is what she would do exactly. And that's why I selected her response in order for this question or to refer to this question. And as a city council, we have to, this is a part of the overall discussion. We must have discussions. We have to be able to discuss and collaborate. I would state that the proposals that Ms. Kobeck had made, I think they would hurt our city at this point. Of course, we want to watch our budget. We need to watch our budget, and we have to cut costs that are not needed. But when you are in what I will call growth mode, which our city is in, there are expenses that are needed. If not, they will they will hurt the city. And there is an annual budget review that we do there within my business, and we review it by each department, and we that's how we that's how we that's how we budget not only for that 1 year, but also there for year two. And right now, if you were to meet with the fire chief or police chief or even public works, they are all requesting at this time. They have open positions that need to be filled. They are looking to not shrink their teams. They're looking to increase their teams at this time. They're looking for that funding. And if that funding is not made available, not that we have to give it all to them, which I mean, they will always request, they'll take everything we give to them, and we have to do our due diligence. But there are many requests and many parts that are required for growth. And so, on, there are many areas within that proposal that I would disagree with. But as you said, I would also be working with the the other four city council members or the other three, as well as the mayor, in determining what is best and what can we all agree on and what meets the city's needs today, but also long term. There are We're both on social media right now heavily, as we know, and there are lots of concerns about infrastructure and the cost of this and why this street hasn't been repaired and what are we doing here and why. There's many voices online, and if we were to make those type of cuts, those voices would only become louder. They simply would, if we were to make those type of cuts. I'm not saying I am very there. There have to be constraints on our spending, and they have to be dedicated to needs versus wants first. But when specifically with the fire chief or police chief and what their needs are, and they're looking at data as well. Even though they're not researchers, they are looking at data. They're looking at the information that's coming in. They're looking at the growth. They're looking at what their call numbers are. They're looking at what their call times are. And they see there are weaknesses in different areas, and they want to cover those weaknesses. And so they they're currently preparing those budgets now for the city council, and those are things that we will have to vote on. And we are in growth mode in our city, and that's not a bad thing. That's the metroplex, and we are going to have to support some of that growth. And but each one has to be looked at individually. We have to analyze the cost versus return and the cost if we say no. And overall, we will collaborate as a team and do what's best overall there for the city and our community.
Melissa, I saw you writing some down. You have a rebuttal?
Oh, no, I'm writing notes,
Okay.
just to keep with the
You're a researcher.
conversation as well.
I got you.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
I guess my thoughts on it, and I won't, I Miss Kobeck and I've served on for a long, long time. When I started, she started as well, almost 2011, I think it was nine, whatever it was. And I get where she's coming from with this because our budget is overwhelmingly staff. I mean, it's like 85%. And most of that is police and fire, for example. Well, I guess what I wanted to maybe just kind of communicate to you guys is the history of where we were when we started this process and where we are now. I mean, for the longest time, we worked on an operating budget of $3 million, and as things got expensive and we went through the '09 bubble, for example, the housing crisis went through 2020. Throughout this whole process, we were operating at a subpar, and you could see it. Everybody's seen our parks and what they used to look like. Our roads were definitely a big issue. And there was just even just general shopping infrastructure and buildings were not painted and things like that. Our town was kind of coming from this old feel, and we're trying to migrate it to new. But when you only have the operating budget of 3 million and you need an operating budget of 6 million, just corners got cut, things get ignored, and things get delayed. And then, about 2021, 2022, it was 2022, I believe, actually, our property values mine almost doubled. So a house I just bought, my wife and I bought this house for 275. All of a sudden it was 350 worth, 375 the next year. And it was jumping no matter what we did. That difference and the taxes that we pay, so nobody raised taxes, nobody reduced taxes. I believe actually council at the time did reduce taxes, but um, the increase of the value, that's where the taxes, that's where it was hitting our pocketbooks. But that's exactly what the city needed to get out of this kind of funk, to bring that level to what I would call par, which is where we are now. We're running a city on all cylinders right now. And in my opinion, for the first time that I can remember that we're doing that. We had ran the city on a reduced staff for before, for example. We didn't have a step plan in place for not only the city staff, but the police and fire as well. These are things that we finally, because of the increase in values of property and the money being sent back to the city, we could finally do these things, which is hiring better people and hiring bigger staffs. I believe last year we made a new position for the fire chief, and he's now got a co chief as well, much needed. So does the police department; they need a co chief. We're just getting to that levels to where these things are needed. Even on the water side, and we'll get to that in the next question. But even on the water side, infrastructure was just ignored for so long. Streets. But in the last 3 years, we were paying off some old loans. And at the same time, we doubled from a $3 million budget to a $6 million budget. Now we can make out more loans. We've done 23 road projects, for example. Half the town's getting new water infrastructure. Parks have been upgraded, which have been ignored. Even the roundabouts, people, which is costly, which is one of the reasons why the city did it. It costs a lot to just mow the thing over the summer. And so these things can finally be addressed. And so I get where Ms. Kobek's coming from with it. If there's any fat to trim, basically, that would be the area because it's the most costly. But from my point of view, from my living memory of the city, we're finally at a good spot where we should be. Oh, we lost Melissa. Now we're back. Sorry, Melissa, we had a little technical difficulties there. She's back with us. But I'll just sum it up. But I just think we're on par, basically. But if citizens or council wants to decide to do these kinds of things, I mean, even our even our automobiles were 10 years old, 15 years old. One was 20 something years old. Our internet infrastructure, for example, our servers were in the roof of a building in July summers. Like police statement needed updating, the library needed updating, the fire department definitely needed updating. That was a volunteer fire department building since the 80s, I believe. But we can finally do that, and I guess that's my point about this little track. It's y'all's goals, but for me, I just wanted you guys to understand maybe the history of where we were and where we're going and where we are right now. All right. Any more thoughts, especially since Melissa, you cut in and out there for a second?
Yep.
Oh, okay. All right. Last one. You all ready? And so far, it's been great. One of my favorites coffee chats. Obviously, you're both very smart. I find you both very educated, and I love talking to both of you. So, last one. And this kind of comes up to earlier about, Melissa, you were talking about, getting community input. Over the years, we do a community assessment every few years, and people do fill out a form online and tell us what they need. And the most recent one, in the recent community assessment, one of the biggest concerns was the water rate. No change there in 10 years. What does that mean, and how would you approach it? And the question really is it was a general question, and people are concerned about water rates, but what does that mean to you? Mine might be a little different. Even the city manager's was a little bit different from mine. What do you hear when you hear the water rate issue? I believe, let's see, Ryan, Ryan, you start with this one.
Sure. The water rates, water rates, that's a monthly bill that all homeowners see, we fill, and they have gone up. And I've tried to do the research and the understanding of why they are where they are today. And it's very complex. It's very complex. And so there are details that both you, Melissa, and Jeff, feel free to correct me on, but it's my understanding that up until roughly roughly 8 years ago, I believe, is when the first transition really started. But the city as a whole, the city council members, over a good 15-year period, they there were infrastructure needs and improvements that were needed that would have cost money, and whether it was politics or not, those incremental increases that we needed to have within those water rates in order to support those infrastructure cost improvements were not passed, and they were not made, and they were kicked down to the next generation or the next term limit or the next city council member, and then unfortunately the city, with our growth, we reached a point of no return, and the cost of the infrastructure that was needed simply could not be made by the city at that time because those incremental increases that should have been passed over a span of years that would have had a smaller impact on city citizens would have been lost, or would have been less. They could have been forecasted. They could have been budgeted. We're not done. And we reached a point where the city was forced to really reach out to our neighboring cities like Fort Worth and Arlington, both. Arlington on the east side, Fort Worth on the west side. And we reached out and became partners with them in offering their water or releasing their watering services. And with that change, there was a large water rate increase that happened all at once. Not that the water rate increase itself, not that the water rate itself was out of line with our neighboring cities, but it was a large increase all at once versus this incremental increase that was truly needed by the city over the past 15 years in order to support the existing water infrastructure that we had within the city, and that was not made. And so it put us in this awkward position where we are now outsourcing those water services both to Arlington as well as Fort Worth.
Melissa, what does the water rate mean to you when people are concerned about it?
Yeah. Um, I'd like to correct something. I think what I was hearing, and maybe I heard wrong. Ryan, you can correct me. I don't think it was because we did not do the infrastructure that we're having to outsource currently. We do that because of our well water and the limited resource we have with that. It's not because of the water rate. And
Uh,
maybe I misheard what you were saying as
maybe I
to why
can
we were outsourcing.
maybe I can shed a little bit of light on that. We used to do our own mix for a while, and it's really expensive. And we have several wells. I think we have one left now, but the quality wasn't quite there. The taste, the texture, how soft it was. Early years and years, actually decades ago, we made it. Earlier this century, actually, we made a deal with Fort Worth about buying water, and we did a mixture of that. And again, that it's top water and it's groundwater, and that doesn't mix for it very well, especially Fort Worth water because it's dirty. Eventually, and this is a long, long road of eventuality around here. And I hear you, Mayor Joplin. She pulled me aside yesterday and corrected me on some of things, but it was a long road to get here. Now we have a contract with Arlington, which is why we hired the city manager at the time, George Campbell, who came from Arlington. And his whole purpose was here was to get that contract with Arlington, not only for water, which we took us a lot of money to connect with Arlington, and so now the east side of town is mostly Arlington water, some of us with a mixture, but mostly Arlington. They're cheaper. It's also they took over repairing, which makes it cheaper for us on our budget because the water fund will pay that, not the city fund. City funds pays water workers to go do that. It's expensive, but now the water fund, which is a self-sufficient fund separate from city taxes, that pays that bill. And that's kind of the history of it. I hope that clears up maybe for both of you why. In the end, we just got to get rid of Fort Worth water, which we're coming to the end of the contract, and then everybody's water is going to taste better in the end. And then there's future kind of things that I discussed on place two the other day. But go ahead, please. Hopefully that clears that up for you.
Thank you. Yeah. Um, so when this was your question, I started including it in as a normal researcher would. I started including it in the questions I was asking people as I knocked door to door. I'm like, what do you think about the water? Is that a
Thank
concern
you.
for you? What does the water rate mean to you?
Yeah.
Because um, I take issue with some of the methodology of the community survey, but that's neither here nor there. But I didn't get the feeling that most folks were really concerned with the water rate itself. It was just the total bill, shock and surprise of like, how is my total bill so high? And especially what's happening with this outsourcing of water, what's happening with this outsourcing of billing, are we using our resources as effectively as we can, as efficiently as we can? And that goes back to trust. There's these questions that people have about what is my money paying for? So really, when there's questions like that, it's all about education. So educating about it's not just your drinking water, it's not just what's coming out of the tap that makes up your water bill. It's also the sewage, it's the wastewater, it's the trash, it's so many things wrapped up into that cost.
Billing
But
software, for example. Billing software
right.
is really expensive. That's just one example of what you were talking about. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, getting education around that and really helping people learn what goes into their bill. And then also, one solution is just seeing, this is where, I've lived in other cities and I've seen other solutions come about. Maybe we can take a little bit from Dallas or maybe take a little bit from Kansas City, where I used to live, that it's like, is there a grant program that we can start helping folks build rain barrels so they're not using as much water on their yards? Maybe they're able to water their plants. It's a small thing, but everything adds up to this massive water bill that people are seeing. So if we want to take that shock out of the water bill, what can we influence? So that's where I think we need to focus some attention to.
Ryan?
I know, Melissa, I agree with that. And as I said, it was a shock factor. It wasn't that the rates compared to our neighbors are high or low. It was just the increase itself that happened so quickly that that was caused by either poor oversight or possibly kicking the can. But the overall water rate that has not, I mean, that's something we talk about, but I don't think that's the issue. It's simply education and understanding what that water bill is and how that compares to the neighboring cities, of which it falls within line.
Yeah, I would
Yeah, but
love
I
a
think
water.
also,
Go ahead, Melissa.
sorry,
No, you go ahead.
I think also besides the is the water rate in line? It's are we doing everything effectively? Fort Worth water is more expensive than Arlington water. So what are we doing to kind of negotiate rates? Is there any negotiating to be done? Is there any negotiating we can do on how much they charge us for billing? We're outsourcing our billing. Is it cheaper to come in-house or is there anything that we can do there? I negotiate with vendors all day long who do my research. So I'm able to negotiate. And that's where is the negotiating room?
Yeah, and again, this is such a big, long issue in Kennedale. It has been since I can remember. We used to have a company called Fathom. They were out of Arizona, and I hated them. They cursed me out on the phone one time. Like they messed up billing all the time, but they were fulfilling a need that the state came along and said, "Hey, everybody's got to go on remote meters out there now. Everybody's got to change their meters." So all of a sudden, we had to change 10,000 meters, and of course, we can't afford that. And so we worked it out with some software company. If we use their software, they would bill a certain way. It would cover costs, and it ended up being a disaster. And buying the software to do it in house, because we used to do the billing in house too, by printing it and mailing it. It's just expensive. To Arlington, who's going to do our billing for us, it's still, again, Kennedale Water. It's not Arlington Water, it's Kennedale Water. They're doing our billing for us. 10,000 more houses, basically, or 10,000 more bills is a drop in the bucket for them. The cost is cheaper for them to add us than it is for us to do it in-house. As far as Fort Worth goes, we can't negotiate a contract that was 30 years. For whatever reason, our original council from years ago made it 30, 35 years. I ain't heard 40 years lately, but I'm making people look that one up. That was kind of locked in, and they have a right to hike it every once in a while, just like the gas company and everybody does. But once we get rid of that, the relationship is better with Arlington, and from their point of view, it's a test program. We are testing to see if they can become a water seller in the area and sell to Rendon, for example, if they start growing a Burleson, getting water to Burleson through us and rent our pipes. And so yes, I was what I was going to say a second ago was I would love probably a water advisory board. I think at this point, after it being such a hot topic for so long, with such different points of views, Mayor Joplin, I'm going to throw my heart out for you, and just the history of it all. I think it's probably time we do some sort of water advisory board, especially since it's a separate fund. But I would say, in my opinion, and being a little water nerd over the years with it, we're finally in a good place. It's always been the sewer. It's always just killed that bill. And like you pointed out, Melissa, it's also garbage, you know. Luckily, we switched garbage companies and they only charge us a penny more than the previous one that we've had for 30 years, but they wanted to jump it up 30 bucks a month, which is pricey. And so luckily Frontier was like, "Hey, we're moving headquarters here. We'll give you guys a good deal because we're here." And that's the kind of relationships that you were talking about. Those are the kind of deals that we are. Yeah, you're coming Frontier or Beach Towing. We're creating these relationships. And water again is a hot topic. And it's not going anywhere. TECQ, I would say, is as powerful as the Railroad Commission now. And for those who don't know, that's oil, gas, and electric. But they were just the annoying kind of, environmental group of Texas before. Now they're suing people. And they're really hard on us on what we should cap in our infrastructure and coming to compliance. And so the we're not the only ones experiencing this. We just don't have the benefits of having our own reservoir. We have the benefits of having our own wells, and I'm a firm believer of not capping the last one, just in case we want to roll it back later on in our future. Because once we cap it, we can't really uncap it. But the cost is not there for us to recreate a water department that we already closed, and do all those things. The cost is just not there, and that's just my 2 cents on it. But I think just just talking to both of you, I think you would agree. It's probably time we have a water board and get people on that. So hopefully the citizens will have a little bit more education about it and just a little bit more input about a fund that really is separate and self-funding. And of course, there was when we have the contract with Arlington, they said, "Hey, we'll fix your stuff, but you're gonna have to upgrade your stuff and repair it. There's a lot of it's in disrepair." And of course, the water fund has to do a $40 million loan to fix infrastructure that is 50 years old. But that's what we need to do anyways. And I go back to what we were talking about in the last question. So hopefully that's enlightening for everybody. Just kind of a short history. I think I expanded on it the other day a little bit more, but um, it's a plum and it's a pickle for sure. Any
Plum
sidebar?
and a pickle.
Any other comments on the water?
I do not have any, Jeff.
All right. Well, that was the last question, guys. We'll move on to closing. I believe it is Ryan. You'll start off, and Melissa will send us out.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank all three of you, or all two of you, all three of us. It's been fun. And this is a part of city governance. And this discussion with Melissa, this is exactly what we need more of. And this is what creates a strong government. And so, myself, I've been here 13 years. I have a family. This is our home. This is our forever home. And this is our community. And there's lots of neighbors. Our city has lots of opportunities. And this is one of the greatest times really to get involved because of the point of where we are within our lifespan in the city and the growth that we see all around us that growth is coming, but we have the opportunity at this time to direct that growth in the way that fits us and our community and what our desires are. And I truly feel that there is a lot that I have to offer, and I've proven my dedication to the city and our neighbors, both on the east side, west side, north side. I proved my interest and the dedication I would have at this time with working with everyone and really building collaboration, because that's what I saw was missing several years ago. And that's really what I feel like is needed is collaboration. And if we can collaborate and have these discussions and work together, then there will be progress and it will meet the need of our city and our community without destroying our community. And what myself and Melissa, what we've seen over the past few years online, uh, oftentimes there are conversations that are polarizing. There's toxicity involved, and there shouldn't be. We are all neighbors at the end of the day, and we have to get. My desire would be that there is some type of unity that should be able to be found and reached. And I simply want to be one part of that. And I feel strongly that I have something to offer at different levels, whether it's my business background or culture, and the culture relates directly to our community. We have there's old versus new. There's old town versus new town. There's no growth versus new growth. There's so many different interests, and there is a happy medium somewhere out there. And with collaboration and with working council members and that collaboration should be very positive, and we should see visible progress in 5 years, without a doubt. There's too much going on around us not to. And so I look forward at this time to being a part of that. And as I said last year, my my current involvement in the city will not change, does not change. I'm dedicated to the opportunities that the city has and meeting more and more people. And I thank you, Jeff, at this time for the opportunity here. Melissa, it was great speaking with you, and I enjoyed this conversation and hope to have more.
Melissa?
Yeah. First off, just like I started, thank you for having us here, and thank you to your viewers for spending the time watching up to the very end.
They're watching too.
um,
The numbers are coming
I
in. They're
know
watching to the
it's
end
it's
too.
been yeah. So I just want to say thank you to you guys, and it's been a great opportunity, and I really appreciate the time you've put into it and the effort you've put into it. So other than that, you know, I think there's clear differences. I'm not a small business owner like you, Jeff, or you, Ryan, but I work full time. This is not something I take lightly. It's something that I've been very intentional about. I want to represent those who are in our neighbors, in our neighborhoods. I'm a wife, a mother. I'm just a regular resident, and I have concerns. And so I stepped up, and I want to be a voice for those who maybe don't have the time or maybe don't have the instinct or the intention to run. Not everyone can be here. So I volunteer. This is a volunteer position. This is something I feel very strongly about, and I want to be able to be a voice. So, just like my full time job in research, I advocate for others. I advocate for those who I'm researching to make sure their needs and their wants are known. I create strategic outcomes and strategic solutions. So, I want to bring that to council where I can be the voice of those residents, of the moms I've met, the dads I've met, the first time home buyers who are even unaware of the city property tax issues. I want to be able to share your concerns and celebrate what you think is going well, celebrate our growth and celebrate, the growing residents and retail and hopefully more commercial development. So I really want to be here for them.
All right. Well, there you have it, Kennedale. This is City Council Place 4. Thank you, both of you, for doing this and arranging the time. We would definitely went over what I thought we would, but it was actually a very enlightening and pleasant experience with both of you. And I encourage you both, no matter the outcome, continue more, being out there. Get out there and be involved and be in conversation. Reach out to me anytime, or anybody, any council or any mayor around here, and just get out there. I think that's half the battle, and it's exciting for me to kind of see new people, new fresh faces coming in, because I'm not going to do this forever either. So it's just good to see some people. And we do want that discourse, and we do want new ideas and fresh ideas. So I appreciate you both giving your time. And Kenneth, it's we'll have hopefully a mayor one. I'm trying to arrange it right now. If not, I'll do individual ones with the mayor council with the mayor candidates as their time allows it. And then I will have one more conversation with just Mr. Owens, who is unopposed as the trustees as we get closer to election. But early voting will start next week, so get out there, ask these candidates questions. You can find them both on Facebook. Right now, they both have things. They both have websites. So if you have any further questions, reach out to them. But for now. This is Jeff Navarez with another coffee chat, and we'll see you in the next one.